In today's video, we'll be talking about the beginning of the Bible. It'll cover multiple stories from the chapter of Genesis, including the creation story, the Garden of Eden, the story of Adam and Eve, and then the story of Cain and Abel. Okay, firstly we have the creation story. This is an explanation of how God created everything. This is easily the most impressive flex list you'd see anywhere, much less in the Bible. Like, there's a whole book talking about the end of the world, and it has a bunch of Naruto 4th grade Ninja War level stuff in it, but it still doesn't even compare to this. This is where God defined himself as the real top G by creating literally everything in 7 days. Actually, it was 6 days, but he spent the 7th day resting after creating literally everything. So unless you count the concept of rest as a creation itself, then he created everything in 6 days. Okay, so on the first day, he made the heavens and the earth, but the earth had nothing in it but total darkness. So on that same day, he also made light. So the light will represent the day, and the darkness will represent the night. On day 2, he created the skies as the water in heaven, to separate it from the water on the ground, whatever that means. Day 3, he made land out of water through evaporation, and also made plants and vegetation. On day 4, he created heavenly bodies, the sun, the moon, and the stars, so they could mark the difference between night and day. Remember, on the first day, he already made the night and day, so now the sun will help bring out the day, and the moon will bring out the night. On day 5, he created sea creatures and birds, and on day 6 was the most fun because that's where we come in. On that day, he made us humans and every other land animal. The first person made was Adam. He was made out of dust and also given the breath of life so he could become a living thing. There were also plants. So even though God had made plants, there were no actual plants on most of the earth yet because no one had actually worked to grow it. But there was somewhere called the Garden of Eden. Now in this garden, everything was different. All the plants, trees, animals, and anything you could think of were all in there despite there being nobody to grow the plants. In the middle of the garden there were 2 trees, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. The tree of life apparently grants anyone who eats from it immortality, and the tree of knowledge gives anyone who eats from it the knowledge of good and evil, and you'll also find out what this means later on. God also created a partner for Adam from one of his ribs. Her name was Eve, and she was the first woman. The only rule for both of them was not to eat from the tree of knowledge. Other than that, they could do whatever they wanted in the garden. The garden had a lot of nice stuff in it, but it also had the devil who was walking around as a snake. And I mean literally walking around, because apparently snake had limbs at this point. Because he's the devil, he was obviously up to no good. So he convinced Eve to eat the one thing they were not supposed to eat, which is from the tree of knowledge. And of course she ate it. She also convinced Adam to eat it too. Now God had warned them not to eat from the fruit because they would die. But like I said earlier, there was a tree of life there, which none of them ate, so they weren't immortal. Lucifer, in contrast to God, said they wouldn't die if they ate the fruit, which technically they didn't. He also says they'll be like God and know the difference between good and evil, something God himself repeats later on. So if I didn't know any better, I would say maybe Lucifer was actually telling the truth and God was lying. God was obviously pissed when he discovered they ate from the tree, so he cursed everybody involved. He cursed the snake, taking away its limbs so it'll have to crawl like we see them do today. And then he also put an eternal beef between man and snake, so they'll bite us and we'll kill them for it forever. Then he cursed Eve and all women with the pain of childbirth, so it hurt like hell whenever they go into labor. He also cursed her for Adam and men in general to rule over women, which finally explains the wage gap. And then Adam, he was also cursed to till the land for every and anything he wanted. From then on, Adam and every man would have to work for everything they want to achieve. Sounds very Red Pill and Sigma. Since they had already eaten from the tree of knowledge and knew what good and evil was, God thought it would be OP to let them still have the opportunity to eat from the tree of life and gain immortality. So he kicked Adam and Eve out of the garden, and from then on, Adam had to work to grow crops, while Eve's curse also became relevant when she had 2 boys named Cain and Abel. Now Cain, the older son, was a farmer just like his dad, and Abel, the younger one, was a shepherd. There was one time they both gave offerings to God. Cain as a farmer gave God veggies, while Abel brought out good food like meat and steak and stuff like that. Obviously, God preferred Abel's offerings because even he thinks vegans are weird. Unfortunately for Abel though, this made Cain big mad. So Cain committed the first murder ever by killing his brother, and God was pretty terrified because this was obviously the first ever scaring the hose moment. And as usual, God pulled out the curses for Cain, and this time they were a lot more personal. Firstly, he took away Cain's farming skills, so anything he tried to grow wouldn't work. Then he also cursed him to become a nomad, so he would spend the rest of his life roaming the earth with no true home. Cain was pretty scared of the whole nomad thing, since this would mean anyone he saw could kill him, but God reassured him and gave him a mark that prevented him from getting killed. This mark seems like it defeats the purpose, but you really gotta understand that Cain really didn't like going to random new places. So much so that he built the first city ever and named it after his son Enoch. Through this city, he wouldn't have to worry about his farming problems since other people could farm instead of him, and then the city could also sort of be like a home for him too. Later on, we also see that Cain's descendants had some anger management issues also. His great-great-great-great-grandson, Lamech, took after his old man Cain when he literally scared the hoes by bragging to his wives about how he killed some young guy because he injured him. So that's everything about the beginning of everything. We saw how God is really capable of making pretty much anything. We saw Lucifer being up to his old tricks, and then we also saw what some of the first people were like. We didn't get any mentions of angels, heavens, or any other celestial stuff, but considering Lucifer was already in the garden, I'd say things like angels already existed, and they precede the creation of humans and the universe. Also, I'm gonna be making more videos like this, recapping interesting periods from the Bible, so subscribe for stuff like that and more Bible lore content.